So, tell me something terrible. All right. You have warned me
Yes.
that this is a lengthy episode.
It is.
So we should jump right in.
Yeah, there's a lot of information in this.
Terrific.
Because...
You remember in the live pod when you messed up the intro and then you get to we did it all backwards?
We did.
I didn't like that. Can you do the normal one? Just for my sake. I like the oopsie, but I kind of not mad about it.
You're not mad about it?
No, you're not mad about it.
Yeah. You are, though.
I clearly haven't got over it.
You're like, it's been 4 days and she said my line. Okay, you ready then? Hi, I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Scott.
And you're listening to Tell Me Something Terrible.
Yeah, you are. Oh, that felt good.
Do you feel better?
Yes.
Closure.
Also, if you didn't...
The world is right.
If you didn't see or hear on... Was that Thursday night we did that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, because we played it between other people's streams. Last Thursday over on the Twitch, which the kids use to stream video games, and you can stream just chatting or what we did as a podcast. We did a live podcast. It was a lot of fun.
And we plan on trying to do more
monthly-ish.
Sure.
If we ever try to push to actually get whatever they call affiliated on there, we're gonna have to do other mediums, but we'll cross that bridge. For now, it's just a fun way to do a podcast with interaction. Yeah,
it was lots of fun. We had 5 or 6 people in the chat, and
which is isn't obviously a ton, but it was fun in terms of getting feedback and them being able to make jokes as we're going along, and then
and then you can build off of what they're saying. It's really
the only
fun.
downside is I actually had to edit audio.
Oh no!
So the one that was released Saturday morning was the edited version, which was fairly our normal
cohesive
podcast. Well, as
kind
cohesive as we
cohesive,
are,
yeah.
yes. With side tangents aplenty, but I tried to cut out most of the chat interaction because it's completely out of I think if we do it again, we'll have to get better about reading the chat out loud. So that if I leave more of the audio in, it makes sense. But I did want people to have a little of that FOMO we talked about, the fear of missing out thing.
Yeah.
Because I wanted
join
people
us.
Yeah, I wanted people to be like, oh, and
if you say something funny, we will build off of it. Or if you say something interesting, it's nice to have more than just us two talking to one another.
And yesterday I posted,
because I love you, but you're all I fucking see.
Right, yeah. But yesterday, Saturday, which would have been, well, people are going to listen to this Tuesday. Anyway, Saturday, I posted almost the entire thing on YouTube. I cut out a little bit of the beginning and the end just because we waited until people showed up. And it went on for an hour and a half. But the whole thing's on our YouTube channel. If you go there and search Tell Me Something Terrible on YouTube.
And then, did you cut out about how much I was a redneck in the...
No. That's
in the... That's in the audio with my first story?
Yeah. No, anything that wasn't
You get to learn the weird... Because, I was actually talking to a client who started listening to us, and she's like, oh, I love it when you just, she's like, you guys have great interaction. And then she's like, I love it when you make fun of Scott and his, childhood upbringings.
Oh, thank you for that.
Because it's so
you
opposite of mine.
You don't choose your childhood, all right?
But it's so opposite of mine. And then it was just, it was fun to, have that comment, immediate feedback, and then discuss how,
how different we grew up.
And then be like, let me tell you a really horrible story about how I had furs when I was a child.
It's crazy how different.
And how we literally tanned a mole growing up with my grandma.
It's so crazy how people that grew up within 10 miles of each other can have completely different experiences the first 20 years of their lives.
Oh, yeah.
Because we grew up in the same vicinity, in the same high school, not knowing each other, and had different experiences at every facet of before school, elementary, middle school, high school, college. Everything was different until we got together. And it still has been, we're not opposites, but there's not a ton of gray area in our Venn diagram. There's a lot
Which is crazy because we had such different upbringings, and then to come out as people that get along really well and
days.
have and have just the same let's be nerds together.
It keeps it interesting.
Yeah.
Anywho, we've talked about us a lot.
Oh yeah.
So did you want to talk about whatever? I kind of know the topic because it got brought up amongst friends yesterday.
Yes.
And we've discussed this not discussed this. We watched a documentary 10 years ago about this.
Did we?
Our first Valentine's Day together.
Did we?
Yeah.
Our first Valentine's to get together, we watched a documentary about the massacre.
Yeah. I bring that up to people all the time.
Oh my God.
When they're like, what are you getting your wife for Valentine's Day? It's like, we don't celebrate Valentine's Day. They're like, you don't celebrate Valentine's Day? It's like the only thing we've ever done for Valentine's Day is our first Valentine's Day together. This is when we were living at your dad's when he duplexed off his house. We watched the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, a documentary. It's like, that's the only thing we've ever done for Valentine's Day. They're like, oh. I'm like, oh, what is it?
All right.
Don't judge us.
So 13 years later, let's get right back into the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
Yeah, I don't remember much of that documentary.
Clearly, I don't either.
Yeah. It was on like the History Channel or something.
Yeah.
It was. This is before
Okay.
On Demand, so we
This
definitely
was
watched it live.
Probably the documentary that we watched was the documentary I tried to get access to, but it wanted me to sign up for a free trial through the History Vault. And I was like,
We can't get that through our cable provider?
I thought maybe we could, but I didn't know any other information. I didn't want to like bother you about it, so I would just.
I'm so bothersome.
I found one on Vimeo instead. It was produced by National Geographic instead of History Channel, so it's still a reputable source.
Aren't they like owned by the same parent company?
Yes, and it was hella hacky. It was amazing. You could tell they put a ton of money into the production because it was like very 300 esque vibes, like because it came out in 2012.
A lot of spray painted on abs.
No, it wasn't the spray painted on abs as much as it was like the 3D still motion where like something dramatic happened and there was blood spatter and cigarettes and bullets and people falling.
Yeah.
And then like it just panned through it like from the shooter's
like
point
an
of view.
episode of CSI?
Yes, it was very dramatic and I loved every second of it. And then the narrator put on like an overly false like 1920s gangster style accent. I was like, I'm here for this hackiness. I love it.
Right? This is like one of those British dramas, whatever. Yeah.
It was amazing.
Reenactment shows.
I loved it.
Terrific.
Enjoyed it. So now I'm going to tell you what I learned from that.
In an accent.
Absolutely not.
No?
Only a Midwest accent.
Okay. Only the accent we don't know we have, but apparently we do.
Yeah.
Hey, we have listeners from all over the world. We definitely have accents.
Oh, 100%. Who needs R's or G's?
I always wonder, like...
Also, it's pop. Fuck you people saying soda. Sorry.
Or what was it? What do we say? Fizzy pop? Not fizzy.
Poppy soup? Poppy soup.
No. It wasn't
Poppy juice.
Poppy juice, yes.
Our Sprite is our poppy juice, which we have poppy juice in our drink tonight.
That was in the Beaver butt episode from Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Callbacks. Ready to get started then?
Sure.
Okay. So first we have to set the scene. So we have a general idea as to how we got the apex of the Chicagoland gangster violence.
Okay.
Which is the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
Yep.
Which is one of the biggest unsolved crimes in United States history.
And is this all take place in that city, Chicago, that I've never been to?
Look, it's a sore subject.
It's been brought up at least half a dozen times in 78 episodes.
Have we ever actually mentioned the backstory to it?
Yes.
About how, like, we went for my 21st and you're all mad because you weren't included because it was a girl's day.
Yeah.
But you're all like, but your sister's girlfriend got to go. I'm like, yeah, but my sister's girlfriend was a friend before I met you, so fuck off.
Exactly.
And now they're married, so.
And the icing on the cake is that your mom was like, he could have gone, it'd been no big deal. Like 10 years later, and I was like, it's a big deal.
We've only been dating for 3 weeks
That's
at this
okay.
point. I twitch.
I'm going to go to Wrigley without you, just all willy-nilly. I'm going to take my dad to Wrigley. We're just going to go.
You already fucking did that. You were like, we need to go to, what's the park in Pennsylvania?
PNC Park.
PNC Park.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Pittsburgh. You were like, we need to go there. And you're like, we need to go there. It's so beautiful. It looks over
my
the water.
My dad offered to drive.
And you were like, literally the day before, he's like, hey, so my dad... And I literally had to work 16 fucking hours that day. And it was like 80 fucking hours into the work week. And you're like, hey, I'm going for a drive with my dad. Peace out. Fuck you. And it was like right before we got married, too.
My dad's old. We have to make memories when we can.
That is true. We never know when he's going to die.
And
especially because he's got sleep apnea. That was the scariest times of my life.
I had just got, this was whatever, like you said, a decade ago, so I just got GPS on my phone. Or I just had my Magellan.
No, we might have had Maggie.
Yeah, my Magellan GPS. So I was like, we can actually go in his car. And we drove all the way there in the morning. We watched the entire baseball game and drove all the way back.
I know.
From Pittsburgh, from Napoleon.
And I still fucking wasn't out of work yet.
We sat down for the first out We didn't do anything else. We didn't get a single thing to eat there, anything. And then we left after the last out, and we didn't even look around. Like, nothing. We parked, we watched the game, we left.
And I was working open to close in retail.
So I technically went to Pittsburgh for that game. I never experienced 1 ounce of the city.
That's a shame, because the city's really nice.
I didn't eat anything at the park.
That sucks.
We were working, like, we were in college still or whatever.
That's true. And making shit pay.
Yeah.
Like, we did not get paid
I remember
well
the tickets were like $46, and that was a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I'm going to buy these, Dad, and I'm going to put 90 whatever bucks on my credit card. I need you to pay me back now, or, like, my credit card's going to go, like, overdraft or whatever, back then. Anyway.
We're in a much better place.
Well, yeah, we were like 20 at the time.
God, we got married so young. I hate you. Anyway, doesn't matter. None of it matters.
Welcome to the 2-hour-long podcast with
Valentine's Day Massacre. I thought this was appropriate because you were like, we don't need more animal podcasts.
No, she comes up to me like 2 days ago and is like, oh, we're going to do another beaver one. I was like, we can't do another fucking beaver one, okay?
Why? It's funny.
Animals have died in like 7 straight podcasts.
Only one died in this one.
Everybody's going to turn vegan or stop listening. Those are your options.
So how about some murders instead?
Exactly.
7 men died.
Because nobody's going to go out and, well, okay. Nobody's probably going to go out and murder anybody after listening.
Please don't.
Yeah. Or just don't, like, do it wearing our pin we sent you if you're a Patreon. And if you're not a Patreon, you can subscribe on patreon.com. Search Tell Me Something Terrible. We'll send you a pin.
Hashtag shameless plugging.
Yes.
Okay.
We're also thinking about doing more merch.
We are.
Mainly for us to wear, but we'll make it available for anyone to buy.
It'll be fun. I've been working on designing stuff.
Yeah, if you ever like see the graphics and shit, like if you follow our Facebook, if you don't, you should. If you do, thank you. But all those graphics, she does. She doesn't like.
It's almost like I studied art or something. Also, I steal a lot of free clip art to do it, and then mash it all together.
Well, and you have my think tank of a brain and your ability, so we should be a marketing team.
Yes.
Hashtag shameless. The shameless plugging marketing team.
Oh.
Let's brand that now.
Yep.
And just put it out there.
Hashtag shameless plugging TM.
If you're a small content creator and you need to be shamelessly plugged, we'll do that for you.
Yeah,
over and over again. That's our slogan. That's our tagline underneath it.
And over again.
You guys are at the first annual shameless plugging business meeting.
So let's set the scene, finally.
Nope.
For the massacre. I just thought when you were like, oh, I don't want to do an animal one, I was like, duh, Valentine's Day is next week. Let's do one that's based off of Valentine's Day.
Because that was the best part about the live Twitch one. We got instant feedback. Everyone agrees. The animal ones are sad.
They are sad.
Nobody likes dying animals.
This one, no one. Okay, the story I picked out.
Gangsters dying? I don't care. Do you care? I mean, I care because they're people. But I don't care because, A, they'd be dead by now anyway. So
Al Capone was really sticking it to the man. He had that Robin Hood vibe.
That's fine. But A, they'd be dead by now anyways because they were in their whatever, mid-20s to 40s, in the 20s.
That Nat Geo... the Nat Geo documentary that I watched. They were interviewing kids of gangsters who were literally involved in this.
Okay, that's fine.
They were in their 70s.
Yeah, exactly. So their parents would be like pushing a $1 bill now.
Like Al Capone was born in 1899.
Hold on. Did you ever watch Good Morning America or Today Show or whatever in the morning where they'd have the Schmuckers thing?
I spent 8 months at home alone with a child.
Like
yes, I did.
When they'd have like the Welch's
the
Schmuckers, 100-year-old people. Yeah. Sorry, I was always like, this is really cool. I hope like, because my great grandma was like 100 at the time, and I watched, and she was never on. I
had my great grandma Sylvia's made it to 101.
Did she make it on there? I think you have to submit it or some shit. I don't think they just do. I thought they did fucking everybody that ever turned 100. Like they had.
There's really not that many of them.
They had like a registry of. I don't know how the fuck that would work.
Everybody in the United States.
Yeah, they're like,
man, there's only 5 people that made it to 100 this year.
Yeah, or there's like, there's only 1 person turning 100 today in the U.S. That's crazy.
Doubtful.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. We eat a lot of stuff we probably shouldn't.
But I was also like, 10 at the time, and I was like, oh yeah, there's only 1 person in the whole U.S. It's 102 years old today, and it's. Yeah, Gretchen from Alabama.
If you ever make it to 100, I will make sure that I get a personalized Schmuckers jar for you.
Oh, thank you. For my ashes?
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, I could be like powdered peanut butter.
Oh my God, stop.
Instead of PB2, it says SR2 on it. No?
Because you know my ass is going to live longer than you. I'm
100%.
going to do that.
You have the genes. Yeah, your family's too pickled to
I
die.
have severe fucking alcoholics that should
Yeah.
have died 20 years ago that are in their 80s now.
They're preserved to perfection.
it's-
Also, I forgot I was cooking food right now, and I can smell it, and it's making me hungry. So
Oh,
we
no.
should start.
Yes.
Because in an hour from now, I'm going to be like
Pissed.
just hungry.
All right. So, St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
First sentence.
Yep.
It's been 15 minutes.
Yep.
Cool. People say they like our banter. This is testing that. We're really pushing it to the limit.
Yeah.
Push it to the limit.
So, the U.S. Passed the indisputably bad idea that they called prohibition in 1920.
Yep.
We collectively know, not a good idea.
Yep. We're more inhibitions.
Yeah. So this just created a booming underground economy consisting of illegally imported whiskey from Canada, rum running, those 6 shots of
No,
vodka.
4. You've barely touched the
It's
third
hitting
drink.
me. So it was
The rumming.
the rum running. Why is that so hard to say? And then bootlegging and bathtub gin, which only fueled violent gang rivalries, fighting over territory. So the most coveted territory being like Chicago and the entire Midwest because we were so close to Canada.
In crossroads of
Yeah.
the Midwest, essentially.
Yep. So Al Capone, head of the Italian South Side gang.
That's the cousin of Mars Capone. That's the terrible Italian joke. Thank you.
The lesser known cousin of Mars Capone.
Al.
And so he vied for full control
Was
over
he
Chicago.
Cheesy? Sorry. I'll stop. You go.
He's a little sweet. So he was vying over full control over Chicago. His biggest rivalry was George Bugs Moran.
Okay.
So
It's pronounced moron.
So Moran was
Moron.
Bugs Moran was the head of Chicago's Irish North Side gang. So we've got Al Capone, who's Italian, South Side.
Yep.
Bugs Moran, North Side, Irish.
Yep.
So gang violence started to ramp up in like 1924 with 16 gang-related deaths that year, and it continued to ramp up to its pinnacle in 1929 with 64 gang-related murders
Okay.
a year. With the
16 to 64. It's like
Yep.
gigabyte size here. We're going.
It really is.
Nice.
Very, very modern.
Yeah.
And so with the accoutrement being the St. Valentine's Day Massacre that took Al Capone from one of the U.S., like the United States' like most beloved gangsters, the stealing from the rich to give to the poor, Robin Hood kind of vibe, to a criminal that must be stopped at all cost. So did I paint a pretty enough of a picture for you for our
prettiest of
setting?
picture.
Yes.
Now you're going to go into mad deets.
Yep. So on the morning of February 14th, 1929, it was a cold, bitter, snowy, windy day in Chicago.
Like they probably all are.
Duh. Yeah. So that morning, George Bugs Moran. I almost said moron. I'm going to get shot. Between like the Russia comment and calling like a mafia
gangster
boss a
moron.
moron, we're going to die.
Right? We don't live very far from Chicago, so.
No, we really do not. And so there was George Moran and about 5 or so of his men were meeting at their usual bootlegging front, which was a mechanic's garage at 2122 Clark Street on the north side of Chicago. It's now a park,
Nice area.
in case you care. So unbeknownst to the gangsters, there was a lookout posted at the small tenant apartments across the street. So as the 5 men went into the garage, a call was made from that tenant, from that lookout post, that Bugs and his men had arrived at the garage to pick up some illicit whiskey from Canada, which may or may not have been like a setup. They don't really know if there was really whiskey or if it was just a lie to lure them back to their home turf. Doesn't matter. They were there to get whiskey. So at 10:30 a.m., a car pulled up with 4 men inside. 2 uniformed policemen got out of the car. The officer driving, quote unquote officer, driving was missing his front tooth and a finger. And they walked into the garage. Full on expecting this to just be a run-of-the-mill raid when the officers entered. The gangsters and a friend that just loved chumming around with the group, and then the mechanic of the shop willingly turned around to face the side wall of the garage and allowed themselves to be frisked at gunpoint without any pushback. They were like, fine, whatever, it's a raid. We'll comply. The Chicago PD's corrupt anyway. We don't care. We're just not going to fight.
Okay.
So they were, once their weapons were removed by the officers, 2 men in suits walked into the garage to join the officers. And within seconds, there was a spray of 70 .45 caliber bullets put into the backs of the 7 men that were there.
With Tommy guns?
We'll get to it.
Cool.
So 4 men turned and
Do you
walked.
think they smuggled whiskey from Canada in maple syrup bottles? Because I
fucking hope so.
Because I feel like the color's not that different.
It's really not.
So I feel like if they weren't, they really missed an opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, chances are.
They were pretty smart.
Yes.
Or like they obviously
smart enough.
Yeah, got away with it for a long time. I just feel like that's a really easy avenue to be like, yeah, we got these 70 crates of maple syrup.
Don't open it because we can't have you opening and cracking the seals.
Yeah.
You know?
We got to have one legit case just in case.
That's true, like a layer on top.
Yeah.
Maple. Oh.
What?
We should do something about maple syrup. That shit is like back like in the start of it, there was a lot to do about maple syrup and stuff too. Like a lot of fake maple. Doesn't matter. We'll get to it.
Okay.
We'll get to it eventually. Hopefully we'll do this for a while. We'll get to the maple syrup.
Save that for a brunch episode.
Yeah. The seedy underground of maple syrup. We'll get to it.
We'll make some underwhelming gluten-free pancakes and talk about it.
Look, we don't talk about pancakes that are gluten-free. They're awful. Anyway, oh shoot, where was I at? Okay.
Just took 70 bullets to the back.
Yep, for the 7 men. So 4 men turned and walked out of the building. Witnesses say that the 2 men in police uniforms came out with 2 other men in suits at gunpoint. So no one questioned it. They were like, 2 officers went in.
Gotcha.
2 officers with 2 men in suits came out. They got into the backs of the vehicles. And
they were all Capone's men.
Yep, they left. So Bugs Moran missed the massacre by mere minutes. So the entire plan, he had all these gangsters coming to the garage, which is their usual meeting place, and he was also going to join them. And some arrived early and went in. They got the phone call, like whoever did this got the phone call saying like, hey, there's people here. And the intent was hopefully to get Bugs, but he wasn't there. He was running a few minutes late. So he literally saw that there was a car parked out front and watched the policeman walk into this garage. And he was like, oh, shit. And just popped his collar and kept walking.
Good call.
Yeah. And he had no clue what was going on inside. So police showed up not too long after to find 1 man still clinging to life, along with the mechanic's German Shepherd. So the guy wasn't even a gangster. He was just running the front.
He was, yeah. He was the only legit mechanic probably there.
So they found 1 gangster alive, and the dog was still alive. His name was Highball. He was tied to the bumper of a car and had to witness the entire massacre. It's reported that the dog was so traumatized from the events that he had to be put down.
Oof.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to get away from all the animal cruelty in this podcast.
No. So the name of the temporary survivor, was Frank Goosenberg. I have lots of Franks.
Okay. Did he go by Goose? He had to have gone by Goose, right?
I have no idea. I'd hope
That's
so.
the Top Gun coming out in me anyway.
There's some really bad gangster names. So Goose was one of the gangsters. He'd been shot 22 times.
Out of 70 bullets, he took 22, and he's the one that lived?
Yeah. He didn't live that long.
Okay.
Hours.
But yeah,
he was still alive. So when he was initially found, he claimed that it was the cops that had shot them all because they were raided by what they thought were police and frisked down. They had no clue what was going on. But while he was in the hospital, he stuck to the gangster code of not ratting on your murderer. So at first when the cops showed up, he was like, oh, it was other police officers that did it. And then when they took him to the hospital, he was like, no, I'm not telling. No, I'm not telling. And then when he was being questioned repeatedly, trying to get the murderer's identification, Frank's last words were, no one shot me.
No one?
No one, with 22 bullet holes.
Yeah. Nope, it was the dog, actually.
So the aftermath was insane. Photographs of the crime scene splashed all over the front of newspapers worldwide, and the Chicago PD and President Hoover decided that they needed to make a real crackdown on the violence, not just like brushing it under the rug and letting it happen.
Yeah.
And a lot of people went from like Al Capone and a lot of this like underground gang violence that seemed to be glamorized from like this normal, like, it's fine, you know, he's stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, to like, oh, this is like really bad, because there were photographs of people lined up on concrete with bullet holes and blood, and it was everywhere.
Yeah.
Worldwide.
Traumatizing shit.
Yeah. And they were like, wow, this is real. And
this got serious, man.
yes, so they brought in a ballistic expert. He was the pioneer in this brand new
A
forensics.
1929 ballistic expert.
So this man proved that every gun has a fingerprint.
Oh, cool.
So he was the man who like did the testings. There was other massacres and other like murders where he proved that every gun has a different distinction. So when it's fired, a bullet's fired, you know, based on like scratches
rifling.
and stuff like that. Yeah, that this came from this gun.
Yeah.
He started that science, forensics. His name was Dr. Kelvin Goddard. So they tested all 70 rounds of
Some
bullets.
say he's a Goddard amongst men.
No.
I hadn't got to make a joke in like 10 minutes. I just keep over here trying not to sniffle into the mic. I'm taking a drink of your drink.
That's fine. Rude. So they tested all 70 rounds of bullets found on the scene. And he determined that
They pluck all 22 out of Goose.
yeah, they literally were pulling bullets.
That
out
was
of
a
people.
pluck joke.
Because it's
Goose.
Goose. I got all those down feathers out.
Sometimes I have to explain my jokes.
It's fine.
They're very subtle.
I'm also drunk and dense. so
Like a soggy sponge over there.
just like those gluten-free pancakes. And so, in case you were wondering what it's like to be gluten-free,
Yeah.
everything's a sponge. So, he determined that all of the bullets were shot from 2 different Thompson submachine guns.
Yep.
It's the formal name for Tommy guns.
Yep.
And 1 shotgun. So
Okay.
the bullets were tested against bullets shot from registered guns with the Chicago PD, since alleged
thought it was
police.
cops,
Yeah. None of them were a match, so it ruled out
Wait,
the
the
actual.
cops were rolling around with SMGs too?
Yeah,
That's kind of cool.
yeah, they had Tommy guns. So none of them were matched. So it was ruled out that the actual police involvement was ruled out, or at least it was ruled out that like any police officers that were dumb enough to use police issued weapons.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
There's probably a lot of, using confiscated weapons at the time probably wasn't beyond the realm of possibilities.
Yeah. So that is about all the evidence that police officers had to go off of. A few eyewitness testimonies, the bullets, the dead bodies, and
Not a lot of closed circuit cameras operating at the time.
no.
Come on, guys.
They also found a prescription bottle with the name Bolton on it from the alleged lookout spot across the street.
Okay.
Because there was a woman
Michael Bolton?
No.
Yamo be there?
His name's Brian Bolton.
Is Michael Bolton the guy from
40-year-old virgin.
Is that Michael
If
Bolton?
I have to listen to Michael Bolton one
is
more
that
time,
is that where he's from? All
it might be.
right.
That was a great show.
I'm searching Michael Bolton, don't you worry.
So, of course, because this massacre was Bugs Moran's men, the Chicago PD naturally looked to Al Capone as the mastermind
Michael
behind the
Bolton
mob hit.
Sings When a Man Loves a Woman.
Oh, God, no wonder he just wanted to Yamo blow. What was it?
Yamo gonna
blow
burn this place to the
myself.
ground? Yeah.
So Al Capone was obviously looked into initially as the mastermind behind this mob hit. But Capone was chilling in his Florida home in Miami, which is what every good Midwesterner does that has any sort of money.
Yeah, snowbird that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could find no direct evidence to link Capone to the crime, and they didn't even have the murder weapons. They
Okay.
just had the bullets.
Yeah.
Until one day on December 14th, 1929,
Merry Christmas.
there was a run-of-the-mill car accident in St. Joseph, Michigan.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, which, in case you care, that's where our trim in our house was milled at.
Okay. Just full circle here.
So a man named Fred Burke was pulled over by Michigan police officers while this officer was standing on the sideboards of Fred's car, Fred lost his patience and shot the officer.
Okay.
Killing him.
Okay, Fred, we need to talk about your anger management.
Look, it was the 20s. You know.
I don't care.
She was crazy.
I still don't think it was justified.
No. So
Back
Fred,
when cops would stand on your sideboards.
it was because they're such big cars,
yeah, I
you
know.
know. Could you imagine a cop like standing on the runners of your truck? Like, sir. Well,
First
you
off-
had one sit down in your car once, didn't you?
Yeah, during like a rainstorm.
Snowstorm?
Yeah, it was gross out. And he's like, hey, do you mind if I sit in your passenger seat? I was like, sure. That's not super He had a canine unit. Anyway, it was a whole weird thing.
What did you get? Did you even get a ticket?
Fuck yeah, I got a ticket.
What were you
It's
doing?
one of the 742 times I-94 has been under construction, so it's supposed to be 60 miles an hour, and I was going 75 because I didn't realize it. So he pulled me over. He's like, you're going 15 over. I was like, I was going 5 over. He's like, no, it's 60. I was like, since when?
It says when workers are present, and it's like nighttime. So
No. It's always. Fines are doubled when workers are present. Anywho.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So, and I was like, this was like 3 trucks ago. So I was like, 18.
Oh, and your Dakota?
Yeah.
You had a pen
No.
shoved in?
That wasn't my Dakota. That was my Taurus.
Oh, no, the tortoise?
I was going to say the Dakota didn't go 75. I know it wasn't the Dakota. If I would have gone 75 in that truck,
It was shimmied apart.
yeah, I would have it would like literally start hopping.
Flintstoning it.
Like a fucking animated car, like those trucks from like the monster truck TV shows. Yeah, it would have started jumping. It had suspension issues. I don't know what you want from me.
And so he shot the cop. The cop died.
Mm-hmm.
And Fred fled the scene.
He fled the scene.
He crashed his car.
As you
Fully
do.
crashed. Not like a little bit of a bumper, like, like a...
Here's the key, Fred. Shoot the cop. He doesn't have a dash cam. It's 1929, dumbass. Just drive off normally. Nobody's going to fucking know who you are.
Yeah, nope. He took off.
Why would you gun it? Like, oh shit, they're coming. No one's coming for you.
Yeah.
There's a dead cop. Let him put the pieces together, Fred. Keep it
Chances,
calm.
December, it was in the snow.
Fred's probably on drugs.
Probably.
He's all hopped up on
Except
moonshine.
back then, it was like, just moonshine. There might have been meth back then, like a baby version of meth, but I don't know. So anyway, he took off,
Yep.
crashed his own vehicle.
Fred the scene. Yep.
Like, couldn't drive it, crash. Stole somebody else's vehicle
Grand Theft Auto style.
and
Love
ran
it.
away.
Okay.
So in his original vehicle, police that came to the scene were like, oh, look at all this evidence. And inside of his car, they found his address. So they raided his house. And in his house...
Fred sounds like a real winner.
Yeah. In his house, they found in the attic a cache of weapons.
Ooh.
And inside of that cache, they found 2 Tommy guns.
Nice.
And so they were tested.
Why? Okay, anyway.
These 2 Tommy guns,
Were the Tommy guns from
they matched.
the massacre?
Yes.
Okay.
So, it
Did he
turns
leave
out...
like the cop uniform with it like a real dumbass?
No. So it turns out that Fred Burke was a previous member of the Purple Gang.
Oh, hey.
Yeah.
We did a bonus episode on that on our Patreon.com. Search Tell Me Something Terrible.
Hashtag shameless plugging.
For sure. Was that the first ever one? No, second ever one.
Second. The first one I got real excited about because it was
Local.
it was the Crouch Murders.
Yeah, local.
We released that one.
Oh, yeah, when
Yeah.
we had a massive power outage because,
5 days of no power. That was cool.
we did.
And we had a fish die. It was tragic.
So if you like me telling stories and Tiff making dark, dark jokes, that's what's on Patreon.
I'm not as witty. I'm just much more dark.
Yeah. No, that's why I keep the topics lighter.
She'll make it terrible somehow.
Yes. I'll tell her a happy story. Watch her ruin it.
So he was a former member of the Purple Gang. He was also one of Al Capone's favorite gunmen and a member of
And
what...
a raging idiot.
Yes. And so he's also a member of what Al Capone himself called the American Boy Gang. And Al Capone frequently used them for his dirty work.
Yep.
So this made Fred their first main suspect.
Okay.
Fred Burke was later arrested in Green City, Missouri, where a suspicious local recognized the newcomer that was missing his front tooth.
And finger.
Didn't say anything about the finger. We'll get to the finger.
Missing his front tooth. I just think
He was
of, like,
missing his front
I was
tooth.
thinking Home Alone when the one guy gets his gold tooth knocked out.
So he was missing his tooth, and he looked an awful lot like a mugshot that this man saw in a crime magazine. people into true crime
Can
a
you
long
imagine
time ago.
having like one of those like crime magazines
Yeah,
from the 20s?
It was literally a detective, like a true detective magazine.
That's what I'm going to start looking for at antique stores around
yeah,
here.
and they had like
Because
public
I bet you they
enemies
have
in
them
it.
around here because we're like the crossroads between Chicago and Detroit.
Yeah, we fucking are.
I bet you they have true crime. All right.
New life goal.
Yep. I'm hitting every antique store and I'm looking. I usually just pass over the magazines because like I don't give a shit about Time magazines.
You go
from,
straight
like,
to the
80s.
records. Like, give me
Sometimes,
some
yeah.
John Lennon.
Sometimes.
We found some good Beatle records.
Right.
We had to sell off a few when we were super broke.
Well, we got to get hitched. We had to pay for our wedding somehow.
Yeah, we did. And the down payment on the house.
Barter
and just-
systems, yeah.
Yeah. So Fred was extradited back to Michigan, where he faced charges for murdering a cop, naturally. But Michigan refused to send him to Chicago to be questioned or even charged with any connection with the St. Valentine's Day massacre. And Al Capone's gangsters just started dropping dead over the course of the next few weeks. Which
Not
just
suspicious whatsoever.
No. It just drove home Capone's involvement, investigators making like the safe assumption that these were all retaliation killings from Bugs Moran's gang.
Gotcha.
So the Chicago PD then tried pinning all of it on, like after that fell through, they tried pinning it all on Capone's number one gunman and bodyguard, Jack McGurn. But Jack had an alibi in the form of his girlfriend. It's called like the blonde alibi. She claims that they were having breakfast in bed all day at a hotel.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, she's probably not biased at all either.
No, because then Jack married her so that she couldn't testify against him. Because you can't make your spouses testify against you in court.
That seems legit. Yep.
Smart.
And a neat little bow there.
Yep. So they believed Capone ordered
He became Jack the Ripper. Just kidding.
Jack the Ripper 2. This is like
Yeah, later.
literally not that much later, though. Like maybe 60 years.
Maybe only
I guess
60
back then,
years.
like 60 years is a long time. So
Like,
anyway,
multiple generations. Yeah, it's a while.
so they believed Capone ordered the hit, but that Jack was the mastermind behind it because there had been 2 previous failed hits on Jack.
Do you ever realize Capone is Cap One?
Yes, I've written it so many fucking times
Like
over the
shoot
last
somebody?
12 hours. You put a cap.
Yeah.
No.
I was about to put a cap in that pig's head.
That's so bad.
Pop, pop, pop.
A capped one. That's awful.
Anyway, sorry. As you said it for the 48th time this podcast, I was like, oh, a little light bulb went off.
Dawned on me. So the motive behind it was that Jack was actually a hit for 2 previous failed hits from the Moran gang.
Okay.
So they literally like took 2 to the chest at one point, and then they tried to kill him again a second time. So they're like, okay, well, that's also a motive for this guy. Like he could have talked to Capone. He was like, go for it. And so so they think Jack may have been the mastermind behind it.
Okay.
This is theory number 2. But then, Jack was finally shot dead in a bowling alley on February 15th, 1936 by 2 men that he walked in with. And then a third man that followed them inside. So he like walked in with 2 people that he thought he could trust.
Yeah.
And then someone else came in and like told everybody to like, don't move. And then all 3 of them pulled out guns and just fucking shot him
Yeah.
at point blank range.
I mean, bowling bags. I mean, you could put anything in there.
You really could. Heads, shoes, balls,
Balls.
whatever. And that happened 7 years and 1 day after the St. Valentine's Day
happy
massacre.
anniversary.
Yeah. So this was thought to also be a retaliation murder from Bugs's gang. So this is one of the alternative theories to like the motive /
Bugs
massacre.
guy can hold a grudge, yo.
He really can.
It's only 4. I mean, okay.
They killed 7 of his men, and this hit they
I
think
thought it was
a
4 people.
No, it was 7.
Okay.
Technically, it was 5, and then there was the 2 bystanders.
Yeah.
But they were like people that chummed around with them.
Bystanders.
You're right. I said bystanders. English, it's hard. But the hit was initially also to take him out.
Yeah.
You know,
No. Yeah.
and this rivalry's been going on for like a decade at this point.
Yeah. Just join forces and take over the city, guys.
No.
That's not how they work.
No. Yeah. So they think that Jack may have also been the mastermind behind the massacre. So that's theory number 2.
Okay.
So years after the massacre, though, other members of the American Boys gangs also started dropping like flies as well.
Terrific.
Yep.
We need more bodies on the floor.
Yep. So meanwhile, Al Capone had been summoned to I'm not kidding, a national mob conference in Atlantic City.
Oh, how organized. I mean,
It is organized crime.
Yeah, they're taking that term literal. They have sponsors and shit.
Brought to you by Casper Mattress.
They have like those booths you walk around and people are like handing out guns and like, ooh, do you want to test shoot this Tommy gun? My food's done cooking. Ignore that beeping in the background.
Shall we pause for the cause?
No, let it go. It's fine.
Okay. So
I set it to turn off after an hour of cooking.
So it was decided amongst the mob leaders that Capone was drawing too much heat, so he needed to take some time out of the spotlight. They organized him getting arrested on some bogus charges in Philly for concealed weapons to throw like the trail off of Capone.
Okay.
Like they're like, great, he's arrested. Take the heat off. Let him chill out.
Did he actually go to like?
He did. He went to jail for
like
10 months for that.
jail?
Yeah, he went to jail for 10 months.
It's probably like the like Martha Stewart cupcake jail or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where she met Snoop Dogg and was like, I'm
I think
actually
that's where
a
she
gangster.
met Snoop Dogg. I think that's just where she developed her street cred.
And so,
She's making bathroom gin with like weird
Toilet
flavors
wine.
in it. Yeah, yeah.
like a little bit of sage.
Yeah.
Some butter. So he did go to jail for like 10 months or so. But in the meantime, all of them were unaware that the Treasury Department was working on a tax evasion case against Capone.
Okay.
Because this was literally the only thing that they could track and that they could trace back to Capone to get him off of the streets and out of control of this huge crime syndicate.
Gotcha.
So for 2 years, the Treasury built up a case against Al Capone. It turned out to be the biggest tax evasion case in U.S. history. So Capone was estimated to generate $60 million a year in income.
That's pretty substantial.
In 1920s money. Yeah.
Did you just say 1920s money or 1920s honey?
Money.
Oh, I thought you said 1920s honey. I was like, don't get condescending to me, beesh.
Don't womansplain this to me.
Yeah.
So none of which he paid taxes on.
He runs a nonprofit.
Yeah. Duh, he's giving to the poor. Hello.
Yeah.
I went to a calculator and I found the inflation.
Yep.
So that $60 million a year in income equates to just shy of, do you want to guess?
$1 billion.
Yes. It is like $925 million or something like that.
A year.
Like a year.
Is that all?
That's it.
Come on.
It's Jeff Bezos of his time.
Yeah, he probably had a fucking penis-shaped rocket, too.
So his net worth is estimated at $100 million 1920s monies, which is the equivalent of about $1.6 billion today.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Which, like, because when I first started reading the numbers, I was like, $100 million doesn't really seem that much. And they didn't reference, because they literally said, like, $100 million in, like, 1927. And I was like, okay, well, that makes it sound like it's $100 million worth of 1927 monies. I'm going to find an inflation calendar. Calculator.
No,
calendar.
Yep.
Whatever. Words.
Calendar.
Look, I got close. Both of them started with a C and an R. What do you want from me?
Cucumber.
So his net
Thought we were
worth.
playing a word association game.
So he, because I didn't feel like 100 million was that much for a mob boss, but 1.6 billion, 100% sure is.
That's enough. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Al Capone was thrown in jail, and the Cook County coroner closed the case of the St. Valentine's Day massacre in November of 1931.
Okay.
Because they assumed that it was from, like, this was an order from Al Capone. They were trying to pin it on him anyway, and they were like, great, we got him for something, so at least he's off the streets. I don't give a shit who killed these gangsters. They just closed the case.
Yeah.
And the coroner simply stated that the men had been murdered by a person or persons unknown.
Wow. Way to use your descriptive words.
Thank you. You really needed some closure.
Yeah.
Because they think that they had the guy who ordered the hit, like, behind bars, so there's no point in further investigation.
Yep.
So Capone was charged with tax evasion in 1931 and sentenced to 11 years in prison. He served 8 years, most of which was spent on... Do you know?
No.
It's your favorite place.
Oh, Alcatraz?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. I thought that maybe you knew that because they've done ghosted. They did Ghost Adventures where they went to Alcatraz, and they
Yeah.
were like, "This is the cell that Al Capone
was
stayed in." Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember that. I just like it from the movie The Rock. So
No, they didn't mention Al Capone in The Rock. So
shame, missed opportunity.
really, so Capone died after he was released from prison. He died as a recluse in his Miami home of syphilis. His personal doctor stating that he had the mind of a child in the end.
Well, that's what syphilis does untreated.
It really does. It's lucky he still had his nose.
You just Benjamin Button that shit.
Yep.
Is that how that works?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
That's actually like that's the sad twist at the end of Benjamin Button is he had syphilis. So in the years following, more eyewitness testimony and evidence came forward. Years later, in 1945, a man named Byron Bolton,
Hey, that's the guy whose bottle we found.
it is, was arrested on a separate kidnapping charge and was all too ready to talk about the Valentine's Day massacre. So he told investigators...
He's been sitting on that story for a decade. He's like, I gotta let it out.
Yep. So he told investigators that he was at the meeting headed by a man named Fred Goetz?
Not Fred Burke?
No.
Okay.
Not Fred Burke. Different Fred. Popular name back then.
Yep.
And that Capone was there at that meeting at a resort in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
In 1928. So like a full year before.
Okay.
Bolton named lots of names like Gus Winkler, Fred Goetz, Fred Burke, and like a couple other guys. He did seem to leave out the fact that he was one of the lookouts, though. Since they found his bottle prescription, they found his script in the lookout room.
Anybody could have taken his drugs, you know?
They really could have, though. Like back then, it's just like nowadays, where it's like, oh, you got some spare Vicodin? $20
You're also
a
in the
pill.
mob.
Thanks.
How do you have how are you getting prescription drugs? Do you guys have like a healthcare plan? How's this work?
I don't have a health care plan,
Can't
but they
you
got
just
enough
get
money.
drug-
who needs insurance?
Can't you just get drugs illegally though? Why are you going to the pharmacy? Just
there's-
steal it from the pharmacy.
There's probably like some stuff like stomach medicine and stuff like that, like
Yeah.
that they couldn't get,
Yeah, you got to keep a low profile.
Yeah. They still live like when I was watching that documentary, they had 3 literal second generations, like children of gangsters from this time being like, he was a family man. And when I was growing up, we'd go down to the basement and play with the Tommy guns.
Like, no big deal.
I thought my childhood was weird because I was like, yeah, we skinned a mole. But these motherfuckers are like, hey,
Yeah.
let's play with Tommy guns in the basement of
Yeah.
my uncle's
It's
house.
just like he sold shoes, but he killed people. Whatever. It's Chicago in the 20s.
So Bolton named a bunch of names. He left out the fact that he was a lookout. And then a couple of the wives of these gangsters came forward to the FBI corroborating Bolton's story. So Georgette Winkler was one of those wives. She wrote a book pointing to Burke as one of the murderers, and that there was a night previous to the massacre that she saw her husband, which was Gus Winkler.
Yep, Mr. Winkler.
Yep, Mr. Winkler. She saw her husband yucking it up downstairs with Fred.
Oh, Yuckin' Winkler's the worst.
Ew. If it's yucking, you should go to the
Right?
doctors.
She yucks some Winkler.
So she saw her husband with Fred.
Back on track.
She saw her husband downstairs with Fred Goetz, dressed up in a fully passable police officer's uniform. Like she legit
An officer gets up.
Yep, he was in an
Fred
officer
Goetz?
gets up.
Fred gets.
She literally thought that they were being raided, but then she heard them laughing. And he was just strutting around like the living room, like literally acting out a raid. But at this point, who they wanted was already behind bars, so there was no point of like reopening the case. And even though no one was officially charged with the massacre, the gang members were still picked off one by one. One was he died in 1932 of an apparent murder-suicide. Gus Winkler was...
As he got older, he became Wrinkler.
he was murdered in 1933.
Okay.
And then it was allegedly on orders of Al
Some
Capone.
Final Destination shit.
Yeah. Yes. So he was allegedly murdered on the orders of Al Capone's successor. Fred Goetz was murdered in the streets of Cicero. Fred Burke was in jail because he murdered a cop. Another named Raymond Crane Neck Nugent.
So they have a goose and a crane neck.
Yes, they do.
Very creative.
Yep. He was last seen in 1930 with Al Capone and then just up and vanished.
Huh.
Yeah. Just gone.
Just got out of Dodge.
Nope. Probably murdered.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Like literally, he was in Florida with Al Capone
And
then no one saw him again.
I hope he made it out. He went to like California, just became a hippie.
The Everglades. Made some real friends. Real close friends with some gators.
Yeah. He lived like that Blue Crush life. Yeah, just waves. Yeah.
And
young Jessica Alba. Yeah, that's his life.
I love that movie. It was great.
Who didn't?
So you didn't with the deducted?
I said who didn't?
Oh, who didn't? Oh, yeah. So it was what was left was a rather anticlimactic ending to like the bloodiest gang related murder in history. There was no court case for anything. It was marked closed. They were like, someone killed these people. We don't know who. And then everybody just kept getting picked off.
He served 8 years for embezzlement. Case closed. That's enough.
Yeah.
That's almost a year for every person he ordered the murder of. Whatever.
Yeah.
Almost over a whole year.
So here's another thing. Because I like knew a little bit about it, but not this. So there's a third and even more scandalous theory behind the VD massacres.
Ooh, is Hoover involved?
No.
Okay.
So Chicago is known for its rampant corruption in the police force.
Okay.
And according to the second generation gangsters that were in that Nat Geo Wild like interview, it could have been an inside job because everyone knew the faces of the cops that they were always running from. So why would they trust the faces of like new cops they didn't recognize that came in to raid them?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you think that'd be a red flag, right? They'd be like, we don't recognize these guys. Who the fuck are they?
These new guys.
Why would I trust them? Mm-hmm. So
they trust the cops that raid them all the time.
Well, yes.
All right,
but they also know,
well,
if you see your regular cops, they're probably not going to kill you because you know
they're
your
just
regular
going to confiscate
cops.
your shit and then move along.
Yeah, pay me $50, move along. So there was another gangster who wrote a letter to the FBI. His name was Frank, of course.
Frank or Fred, those are your choices.
So his name was Frank Farrell.
Will's dad.
So according to him... That was bad.
That's all I got is association jokes at this point.
So according to him, 2 months prior to the St. Valentine's Day massacre, there was a brawl at a speakeasy. So a firefighter / son of Chicago cop, so was a son of a cop, his name was Devin, got into a fight with one of the members of the Bugs Moran gang.
Fisticuffs?
Yep. And so that gangster shot the firefighter.
Okay.
And so he was scooped up by other members, and he was dropped off on the side of a road somewhere in Chicago. So Devin managed to survive long enough to make it to a call box.
Phone booth?
Yep. The fancy term for phone booth, to get to a hospital. So he held on for a few more days, and in the meantime, his cousin came to visit him. His name was Jack White. He was an Al
Jack White?
Mm-hmm, Jack White. He was an Al Capone gunman.
Big Seven Nation Army guy?
He had 4 fingers.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep. Devin told White that he was shot by a member of the Moran gang before he died. So according to this Frank guy, the entire thing was planned and orchestrated by Jack White with the help of Al Capone as like a retaliation murder for the death of his cousin. So, but this is hotly contested because according to state records, Jack White was in jail when the Valentine's Day massacre took place, but the Chicago PD was known for its corruption and like bribes to like just let people out on day passes.
Okay.
Yes. But allegedly at this time though, they had someone come in and reform the whole prison system. So they're like, no, it's impossible. There's totally not corruption anymore.
He had a family funeral that day he had to attend.
Yeah. And so the theory is that no one questioned when the police showed up to like raid the garage because they were actual officers that gang members recognized with like along with members from Capone's gang coming in after they were disarmed. So even though this is like a fun, twisty, like scandalous story, like the prevailing thought is that it was still the American boys that did the murdering on the order of Al Capone in an attempt to remove as much competition as possible and kill Bugs Moran himself. It just failed because Bugs like saw them and was like running late. So he was like, nah, bro.
Yeah.
I don't want to die.
His spidey sense was tingling.
Yes. And it doesn't really matter because within the 30 years, everybody associated with this crime
was all murder
was all
anyway.
dead.
Yeah.
Yep.
The life of a gangster. So glamorous.
Yep. And so when contacted by the reporters, Bugs Moran said, quote, "Only Capone kills like that." And then when Capone offered his own opinion on the murders a few days later, he said, quote, "The only man who kills like that is Bugs Moran." So they're really just pointing fingers at one another.
Yeah.
So over the course of the next following like 30 years, everyone associated with the Valentine's Day Massacre had died. And the last person that died,
Fred Burke?
Bugs Moran.
Oh.
Yep. He outlived everybody, the target of the entire thing.
Avoided syphilis?
Yep. And he wound up dying of lung cancer.
Oh, from all the cigarettes.
Yep. So that is the story of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
The full story.
Yep.
I always thought it was more people. Like, when you say massacre, I'm thinking, like, dozen minimum.
I thought so, too. And I also didn't realize there was this many, like, theories. I didn't realize it was unsolved. I just assumed, like, they were,
unsolved. It's a case closed.
No, it's a cold case. They technically closed it with murdered by persons unknown.
Yes.
That's the solve.
With time served under embezzlement.
Yeah. And so there was a lot of twists and turns and a lot of theories. Both, I feel like all three of them could be valid. Like, you don't know.
It's probably...
and there's a lot of he said, she said from a lot of very unreliable sources.
There's probably... I would say it's probably a combination of it's Capone and his people with a little bit of intel from the cop/fire department side of it or whatever, like that angle.
Where do you think they got the uniforms from? If they seem that legit?
Yeah. It's probably a little, hey, you want these people dead. I want retaliation of these people dead. Let's work together, and then it'll all be like a slap on the wrist if it ever comes up. Like,
yep. Which is exactly what happened.
We'll actively not solve it, and then we'll yeah.
The Chicago PD was legitimately getting like accused of it because there was so much corruption like throughout the entire investigation. They're like, you guys aren't even trying. So on top of trying to investigate this, they also had to defend their investigation.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And then,
I would say there's a lot less corruption, but like there's not.
Yeah. It's not that shocking. They were probably in both Moran and Capone's pockets to a certain extent anyway. So,
it's almost like Prohibition probably shouldn't have never happened in the first place.
Well, you live and you learn.
And hundreds of thousands of people die in the process.
And now pot's legal. And gambling. So whatever.
Yeah, fuck it. Who cares?
Right? Gangsters are like, well, we're just legal now. We'll just open sports
Let's just go live in Vegas and call it good.
Yeah, let's just make
Cushy.
moonshine and sell it. We'll grow pot and sell it and start a gambling app and sell it. Yeah, you don't even have to. You can just do it in daylight now. As long as we can tax you, we don't give a shit.
Exactly. So yeah, how you feeling?
I'm fine.
Yeah?
This is a fun topic. See?
I thought so.
Only one animal was in it, and it only died because it was so scarred from all the humans dying.
Yeah, you can't give dogs therapy.
That was
maybe if they just gave him a weighted vest, he would have been fine.
That is realistically the worst part of this entire thing was the German Shepherd part.
Yeah, because at this point, if you get involved with Al Capone, you should just expect to die.
Well, yeah, it's kind of a like, they're probably like, you get like 6 good years riding that high, and then you're probably going to get whacked, or you're going to have to kill enough people where you're going to wish you got whacked.
Yeah, so, you live, you learn. You know what you were getting into at that point.
Yeah.
So, sources. Just 3. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre from history.com.
Yep.
St. Valentine's Day Massacre.org, because you can go take fucking like tours of a museum.
Okay.
On the bucket list.
America.
And look, we love gangsters. Like
we love murder. There's an entire true crime category of everything.
Yes.
YouTube, podcast, TV, everything. Yep.
But it's been around. It's been like that for hundreds of years.
Oh,
like when
yeah.
we did the Crouch murders, and everybody walked in, and we're like, we need to steal all the pieces from the house.
Yeah.
It's embedded in our culture at this point.
Humans love superior humans and inferior humans. Average humans rarely get any spotlight. If you're the scourge of the earth or like a fucking saint, you get all the shine.
Yeah. Average. That's just why our podcast hasn't taken off yet. We're just average.
That's right.
3-star podcast.
One of us
here.
should get sainted and the other one should become a murderer. We'll rock, paper, scissors for it later.
All right, let's go.
Okay.
And then I also found the documentary from the National Geographic from 2012 called Valentine's Day Massacre.
Yep.
Because I couldn't get access to the one we probably watched 10 years ago that I don't remember.
Probably.
Yep.
And if you made it this far,
congratulations.
you did it. Look at you go.
This was a long-ass episode, and I apologize.
No, it won't be that bad.
Yeah. There's just, when it comes to, like, the blue-collar crimes and, like, any gangster, like, it's all so interconnected, you can't leave any information out.
Yeah, and like you touched on the Purple Gang for a little. And what was the original episode that brought that up? Something in Detroit, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
But anyway, it was like that. And you mentioned one thing about it, and then I looked into it and I was like, this is an entire 45-minute episode. So I did it as a bonus episode because it's like you take like...
Oh, I did it on the wood alcohol. The ethanol alcohol.
Yeah.
That like
Prohibition.
killed, that killed because it was so unregulated.
Like you could probably take one piece of this.
It's almost like regulation saves lives, guys.
Well, okay, but I mean, like, I could probably take one person out of this, and you could do a whole 45 minutes on that.
I have 3 gangsters that I eventually want to do that's on my list.
Yeah, it's just like...
And you mentioned one of them a couple weeks ago, where you're like, well, that guy's the last public, like...
Enemy number one?
Enemy number one. You're like, why haven't you done this guy yet? I'm like, because I got 2 other enemy number ones on my list.
Right, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's just,
Because also Michigan has a shit ton. Like McCourty Park is connected to Al Capone. Like
where we got married.
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's really dense in this area, and so I want to do more on the gangsters. They're fun.
And that's like when people are like, because that's always the first question. What's your podcast about?
Everything
I was
horrible.
like, we called it this so that we wouldn't pigeonhole ourselves. Because I don't want to hear about murders every week.
No,
I don't want to hear about animals dying every week. I don't want to hear about. Well, I could hear about diseases every week because I work in that field, but. There's other podcasts that do that. I like the variety.
Yeah.
And if you ever want to hear a topic or have suggestions, reach out.
Yeah.
We have our social media. You've seen us. We've shamelessly plugged enough.
Yeah. And we have an email, like the actual email too, where you could email us too.
Just tell me something terrible podcast
at Gmail.
At gmail.com.
Yeah. So if you've got suggestions, we take them. We've done a few suggestions so far.
We have YouTube comments, Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a horribly long email. We would know. We log into it often. Mm-hmm. And every time we use it to like order pizza and stuff too, just to shamelessly plug, we'll be like, tell me something terrible podcast at gmail.com. Maybe the Hungry Howie's person will see it and they'll be like, ooh, what's this?
I have nothing better to do while I'm driving around delivering pizza to all these lazy ass Americans.
Yeah, this 18-year-old kid's going to be like, oh, yeah, I'd love to hear these 30-year-olds talk about murder. Doubtful. Anywho, thanks for listening. This is the first? No, last week was first episode of February.
Mm-hmm. When
is
time is a flat circle?
This is going to come out Tuesday, so we got a couple.
The week before Valentine's Day. I thought it was appropriate.
Share this with your loved ones.
Just like we did 10 years ago.
But yeah, this is your first Valentine's Day together. Order some
pizza
rolls.
From Hungry Howie.
No, we would have done probably pizza rolls and like
tater tots or pierogies.
No, this would have been like pizza rolls and Burnett's Us.
Yeah,
back in the day.
Yeah.
Yep. Maybe some really shitty light beer for me.
Keystone Light and raspberry nuts and cranberry juice.
We would have done pizza rolls in that little toaster oven until they floated. And then we would have ate them off the tinfoil because fuck plates. That's how you rolled. That was it back in the day.
We grew up poor.
Well,
fuck real ovens. We have a toaster oven.
we were young, yo. What do you want from us? Anywho, I think toaster ovens are underrated, personally.
Air fryers are the modern day toaster oven.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Anywho, let's not digress onto that tangent. It's
gone on long enough. We really appreciate you guys sticking through it.
Yeah, for sure. And, we'll be back. We're not doing another episode this week.
I fucking hope not.
You're like,
I'm
done.
Really busy.
Yeah. So we'll be back
this last week was like a slow week, so it was a good time to do an extra episode, but next week's fucking packed.
Yeah, and we did that little Thursday bonus
thing. And I gotta
thing.
do tax shit still.
Oh,
Someone's been putting off an expense report.
Ugh, brutal. Ugh. Anywho, thanks for listening.
Yep, thank you.
We'll catch you guys next week.
Okay, bye.
Goodbye.
Oof, that was terrible. Thanks for listening to our terrible podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you like to listen. Feel free to follow us on Twitter at TMSTPod.
And if you'd like to support the show, you can find us on Patreon at Tell Me Something Terrible.